not waking up for me here. Hopefully, as we go along, you'll be able to see my face up there smiling at you. But in the meanwhile, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So I just want to say welcome to all of you. I'm really, really excited to have you here for what we have in store for today. This is just one of my favorite topics. And because it's joy, we're going to talk about joy and how joy is changing lives around the world. But I just want to give a shout out. I see some familiar names there. I see my friend David and Deidre and Angelica. I recognize your name. Welcome Henry and Hoka and Joel and Ken. There's a lot of names here I recognize. Steve and Mike. And I want to welcome even those of you I don't recognize. Hopefully I will get to know you in coming days. I like to reach out to my friends here who join us on the Pastors Weekly so I can hear a little bit of your story. And anyhow, a little bit of my story is I'm the director for Thrive Training, where we proactively train leaders how to start joy, how to build joy, how to learn what we call the 19 gentle protector skills. As Ed and I will probably talk about those at some point a little later. My passion is this family of mine, as you might see on your screen, my wife and sons. We really do work very hard to build joy and pass on a whole lot of joy to these little ones that you see in that picture. Both Jen and I grew up with fairly low joy, so it's amazing what this training can do when you start to apply it to your life. And if you're new to the training, well, I just want to say you're at the right place, because we're going to talk about how joy really can change our lives and impact our ministries. And so the goal of the Pastors Weekly really is to interact with you. I always have a special guest here, and we have a time of sharing, and then we want to hear from you. And so as Denny said, if you have a webcam, hopefully yours will work better than mine at the moment, and you are welcome to join us with your webcam. If you're a little bashful, that's fine. You can type in your questions. Some friends like to call in. Some have a headset like I do, and you can just chat away. Because ultimately we want to hear from you. This is really a way to interact with you on some really fun topics. And today's fun topic, which I am really excited about, is how joy is transforming people in Peru, and what this has to do with you. And my friend and colleague, Pastor Ed Khouri, and his wife Maritza were just in Peru, and Ed's going to talk about this this exciting experience. So Ed, I want to welcome you back to the Pastors Weekly. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you, Chris. It's good to be back with you. Of course, anytime I can be with you, it's fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
Chris and I have a blast when we are together.
Yes.
It's always a joy.
Yes, it is.
I also want to welcome Pastor Salazar, because I can see that he is a guest today as well. And Pastor Salazar was the one who invited Maritza and I to go to Peru, and he was just an incredible host while we were there. He's just incredibly kind. He has a big vision, and we just love being with him. So, Edward, welcome. I am glad to see that your name is there. Edward and I have been talking over email the last couple of days, and I'm just excited about what's happening in Peru. I kind of want to tell you the story of our trip to Peru, and then towards the end kind of where we're at and what's happening. I think my webcam's back up and you can see me. I apologize for the sweatshirt, but it's just darn cold here. And for me to actually be warm in the house that I'm in right now, I would not be able to afford my utility bill. So I mostly run around in the wintertime like this, and sometimes like this when I get cold enough. So usually I'm a little bit more dignified when I have to be on camera or or out in public. But what can I say? I'm staying warm. And you wouldn't want to hear me cold because my teeth would chatter. So joy starts in Peru. This is about growing the dream of self-propagating recovery and transformation as a normal function of the church. Now that's Shepherd's House vision. Shepherd's House has had this vision for years now, and I am so excited to be part of this vision and bringing content from the new book Joy Starts Here, as you can see in Spanish, my pronunciation is terrible, but El gozo empieza aquí. Joy starts here. And we also brought material from Thriving Recover Your Life, which I'm not going to attempt to pronounce, but I will probably murder that. But we brought material from both Thriving and Joy Starts Here to Peru. Why were we in Peru? We were in Peru because Pastor Salazar contacted Shepherd's House almost a year ago now and was very interested in learning more about the approach to addiction, trauma, and recovery that is part of the Thriving program. So in talking with him, talking with Jim Wilder, Jim suggested that Maritza and I go, and we wanted to, instead of bringing information about the life model, we decided to bring Joy Starts Here and an overview of what a joyful approach to recovery looks like. Now, Maritza and I found this picture in a book in the hotel we were staying at, and those hats I saw in shops everywhere. It's very Andean, very Peruvian. That is a picture of Jesus with a lamb, and I just loved the art that I saw there. Now, Pastor Edouard, this picture is a little blurry, but this is Pastor Edouard here in the middle. And like I said, Pastor Edouard was our host. He is a man with a huge vision for Peru and all of Latin America that I'll be talking with you about later. And in case any of you are wondering where Peru is, it is in South America, right along in here. Peru has an amazing diversity of climates, altitude, and everything else. Everything from Amazonian rainforests to high Andean peaks that I think have snow on them all year to over here at the coast. Lima is the capital city of Peru, and from what I've read, it has about 9 million people in it, and about a third of the population of Peru live in Lima, if information I found on the internet is correct. It is the largest city in Lima. It's right on the coast. And as you can see, there are cliffs leading down to the Pacific. Lima, in places, is a very, very modern city. There are lots of high-rises. There's lots of people. Peru's predominantly Catholic. And if I understand correctly, Pastor Edouard told us there are no Christian universities in Peru that offer any kind of courses in counseling or addiction treatment or anything like that. And as a result, there is a huge gap between secular people and people that do church work. There's very little interaction for helping people that combines both secular and spiritual principles. Because of the work we've done with Thriving and working with Jim, to me, relational Christianity is something that's entirely scriptural, and it's also good neuroscience. So it's not at all hard for me to quote the Bible and neuroscience in the same sentence. This is something that's very much needed in Peru because there were many church people and people that did church work with addictions, along with a good number of psychologists, some mental health counselors, and people that worked in secular fields. And they were very excited to be there because their training never helped them bridge the gap between the secular and spiritual. So this is part of why Pastor Edward wanted us to come, and it was gratifying to me to see people from both secular and spiritual communities there. One of the other things that was unique about the conference was the presence of Lotsa TV. Lotsa TV is the largest Christian satellite network in all of Central and South America. So it broadcasts throughout Latin America. Pastor Edward had contacted them to see if they would be willing to advertise the conference on their network in Lima. And they went and made a presentation to the person in charge of that kind of thing at Lotsa. And I can't remember if it was a programming director or the director or who it was exactly. But the story I got was the person there began to cry and said, "This is exactly what we need in Peru." Mm-hmm. And they decided that they would advertise if they could broadcast the conference later. And this was above and beyond what Pastor Edward had expected, anything I had imagined. So what was fascinating about this is Lotsa TV was there for the entire conference. In the bottom here you can see a camera. There were 3 cameras set up. We had the lights set up, everything. It was pretty fascinating, and the technology was just incredible. Lotsa TV sent the camera people and the people that there were high-definition TVs in the room, and they kept adding captions, as you can see there. There's Maritza and I. I mean, it was just amazing. So Lotsa TV was a big part of this. And this was all very exciting for Maritza and me, except for the pain. As some of you may or may not know, I blew out a disc in my back just about a year ago. It was this month last year, probably close to this date, that I did it. And I had surgery the week before Christmas, and they had to fix 2 discs. And the bottom line was I have a good deal of nerve damage in my back and in my leg, and a disorder of my nervous system that's affecting most of my body right now. And that is incredibly painful. It's limited my ability to travel this year. And even when I've traveled, Chris, you remember at the Joy Starts Here conference, I could only teach for a little while.
That's right.
Then the second half of the day, I'd have to go lay down. Conferences for me have been like that all year. I've been mostly sitting down teaching because it is just too painful to stand for any length of time. So Maritza and I knew that God wanted us to go to Peru. We were totally clear on that. It seemed like God was sending us there to release something new in Peru, and that's something he was very much wanting. So we were excited about it. We were excited about meeting Pastor Edward. We were excited about what he wanted to bring to Peru. But frankly, we had no idea how we were going to do it. I mean, on the flight down, Maritza and I are looking at each other going, how in the world are we going to do this? Because I haven't taught for 8 hours at a stretch since I blew out the disc in my back. So we're tired. You know, plane ride is never good, especially if there's turbulence when you have a bad back. So, you know, we're kind of bouncing along. We had a fairly long layover in Mexico City. And by the time we landed, got to our hotel, and crashed, we'd been up 20-some hours. And we were pretty just exhausted. and we're like, how are we going to do this? And all I could think of is, I don't know, but we know God wants us to do it. So we met. That was Saturday morning, about 1 in the morning, that we finally got to bed, and we met Pastor Edward and the person who did almost all the translating, JC. We met them and their families on Sunday, and we visited the church. We ate lunch together, and everything was going well. We were just excited, and just didn't know how we were going to do it, but we're figuring okay. Now, to make this whole pain issue worse, that Sunday night I woke up around 3 in the morning trying to pass a kidney stone. And if you have ever had a kidney stone, it has been compared with the pain of giving birth.
Oh, wow.
It is excruciatingly painful. Part of the problem was the room that we were in wasn't heated that night. There was no hot water, and cold temperatures make the nerve endings in my body much worse. And on top of the kidney stone, it was just, I was up and kind of curled up in a ball hoping that this would go away. And the really interesting thing about that is that I still didn't know how I was going to do that day, but I had such a good sense of God's presence and God being with me. It was like an Emmanuel time of just knowing God's presence and knowing that He was with me. And if you've ever been in a lot of pain, the tendency is to totally freak out, because you can't just make a kidney stone stop. I just was drinking tons of water and running to the bathroom constantly. So morning came, and we went to the church to do the conference, and I didn't really let anybody know about the kidney stone, I don't think. I just remember we told Pastor Edward that I may have to take more breaks than what we had planned on. But you know what was totally amazing is when I got up to teach, and I realized this was going to be on TV, so I couldn't cancel. And there were people showing up that were planning on being there, so I couldn't cancel. As soon as I got up to teach, the pain left, which was just unbelievably amazing. I don't think anybody there knew that morning or that afternoon that I was trying to pass a kidney stone. I mean, it was, and the weird thing to me was God gave me so much energy during that conference. It was unreal, because one of the problems with the nerve disorder I have now is it just is pretty exhausting. It just wears me out pretty easily. But God just so showed up when it was time to teach. And as soon as the breaks would come, I would feel the pain again, and I'd sit. But I realized I could not sit to do this conference, because if it's going to be broadcast, who in the world wants to watch 30-some hours of a guy sitting behind a desk talking? That's like completely and totally boring. There were times when I was doing this that I had so much energy. I felt like Elijah running ahead of old Ahab's chariot. I mean, it was just, I mean, God definitely wanted us to do this thing. You see there in the picture the person who translated for me almost the entire time, JC. JC was born in Puerto Rico, but he lived in New York. So his English and Spanish were great. He was a blast to work with, and he was great at matching emotional energy with me. So the conference for us, when we would finish, we were exhausted in the evenings, and just kind of after this, starting on the third night, I would just mostly go back to the hotel and collapse. But when it was time to present, when it was time to talk about joy, when it's time for joy exercises, time to share joy, time to teach about joy, it was just amazing to me. what God did. And it lasted all week long. It wasn't just a one-day thing. You can see JC and be there in the bottom. It's me on top. The picture on the bottom there, I'm telling the story of Jesus and the woman at the well. So I'm sitting on the floor to show how Jesus would have sat at the dinner. And there I'm throwing a ball around to talk about grace. That ball had a smiley face on it, so it was great to throw around to talk about joy and to talk about God strengthening us. But we just had a blast, and it was awesome working with Pastor Edward and JC. The people there were so hungry for joy, and they were so excited about the material and the stuff that they were learning. I could tell from their questions that they were really tracking, they were really paying attention, and there was such hunger for all of this stuff, for both the recovery side and for the Joy Starts Here material. Now, Maritza was very much a part of the conference. One of the highlights for Maritza was a lunch she did with a lot of women, some of who were professional counselors, talking about codependency. Wherever we go around the world, codependency is a huge topic that everyone asks Maritza about. I don't know, she must have a little invisible badge I can't see that says, "Women, ask me about your codependency." but that was one of the things we did teach about, she and I did, but at lunch she just talked to the women, shared her story, shared some of her experiences with codependency, and she absolutely loves doing things like that. Very often at conferences, I do most of the teaching, but Maritza's gifts are so small groupish, so one-on-one talking and sharing with people. She is an awesome, awesome networker. I am so glad that we get to travel together because our gifts together work really, really well. It was interesting because in Lima, the big meal of the day is eaten at lunchtime, and we would break for lunch, I think, at from 1 to 2 o'clock. And it's such a big meal, there was no way I could eat all of it, especially at lunch, because when I teach, I don't eat much anyway. But you should know the food is very good. And the response from the people, Pastor Edward sent me these pictures, the response was just amazing. We'd sit and talk and have lunch with people that attended, and sometimes we would talk with, I remember we had, Chris, you will find this interesting, there is a woman in Lima who has started a long-term residential program for people with borderline personality disorder.
Oh, wow.
That is her entire focus. And we had lunch with her one day because she was curious about how joy and how the material we were teaching could be used in her program to help the women that she was working with. It was fascinating to me. I've never met anyone who has started a residential treatment program for people with borderline personality disorder.
Wow.
Chris, have you ever met anybody like that?
No, I haven't. I think that is exciting what she's doing. I've never heard of that before.
It was just amazing. She's a psychologist and had just received the funding to do this. I was so impressed with her and impressed with all the people that attended. The psychologists, psychiatrists that attended seemed to be very much relieved that they had a place at the table too. Because in Peru, I think they often feel excluded. And Chris, you know how people can be sometimes. Christians that don't know any better just will put down anything having to do with counseling, anything having to do with psychology, anything having to do with neurology.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
People mean well when they do it, but it so hog-ties secular people, because they feel like, well, as far as Christians go, they don't have a place, they don't have a thing to offer, and their training should just be thrown out the window. And that is such a disservice to them and to the church.
Yes.
Gosh, we have learned so much from neurology. I mean, and one of the biggest things that's satisfying to me about what I've learned in neurology is how much it corresponds to what Jesus talked about all along.
Yes, that's right.
Christianity, if it's not relational, I'm not really sure we got the right stuff. I think we got sold a bill of goods.
Yes.
So it was very satisfying for me to hear their questions and to work with them, and to hear the questions of some of the leaders at church and some of the people that work from just a spiritual perspective. Pastor Edward told me during the week that he had people continuously asking him, what do we do next? What do we do next? How can we get more training? How can we start using this stuff immediately? So on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say the attendees were about a 10 because they were so interested and motivated. And the results were that the soil we were working with, the people we were working with in Peru was good soil. I mean, it's the kind of soil Jesus talked about in his parable that can produce a crop that's 100 times what gets sown into it. Wow. Pastor Edward has a big vision. His vision is to see these materials, the thriving materials, and Joy Starts Here, brought to Peru, and training in Peru to implement them. He has a vision for translating the materials for use not only in Lima, not only in Peru, but throughout Spanish, all of Latin America, all the nations that speak Spanish, from Mexico down to the tip of South America. He has an incredibly large vision. So he is very interested. He and I have been dialoguing, and I've been talking with Jim Martini at Shepherd's House about his desire to see these materials translated and for more training to help people learn how to use them. But Pastor Edward's vision is bigger than that, because he would like to see a residential treatment program started in Lima. That is such an awesome, awesome vision. And Chris, as you and I know, when the weak and the strong are working together, everything comes out much, much better.
Yes.
So part of what's exciting to me about Pastor Edward's desire is he is a pastor at a church in Lima. So it will not be difficult for him to keep one foot in church community while he's working to develop something like a Christian Treatment Center. So from the beginning, he will have the weak and the strong connected, which is a huge advantage over many people that try to start programs apart from strong connections to local churches. So I am just very excited for Pastor Edward about what God's going to do with this vision, and I've encouraged him to work with some of the people from the conference to form a team to help bring this vision to pass. Pastor, in one of his emails to me, Pastor Edward told me that the people in Peru still have joy on their faces from the training, and they are very, very motivated to say, well, what comes next? What's our next step? How can we get more training? So I'm very excited about him and the group he's going to pull together around himself. I'm also excited about what Lotsa TV has done, because they've edited the 30-some hours of teaching into the 30-minute segments for broadcast on TV. And I'm not sure what time they're going to be broadcast, but they'll be broadcast at the same time every day, I guess, until they're all done, which should take a a bunch of weeks to do.
Yes.
I know I did a commercial for Lotsa TV for 7:30 on a Friday night. I don't know if that's what time they're going to do this, or I'm not sure. And Lotsa TV is also providing Pastor Edward, and he'll give them to us, master DVDs of the conference, which is great because now we have an overview of material from Restarting and Belonging and an overview of Joy Starts Here that will be in Spanish. Part English, part Spanish, which will be very exciting for us to be able to use for Spanish-speaking populations here in the U.S. So it will be great to get those DVDs. Pastor Edward is working with the publishing company that publishes and distributes the Life Model in Spanish, which is great because he already has a connection to publishers. So Pastor Edward's vision is to be able to bring these materials throughout Latin America. And what I've told him is that if that happens, he would also be the need to be the training person for Latin America, which to me is exciting. And we have talked about follow-up trips to come back and do restarting training maybe next year. We'll probably be in Chile for to do some training with youth with a mission school. And it's not very far to go to Lima. Lima's the country just north, Peru's the country just north of that. It looks like we're also going to be in Brazil to do some training next year, so we're making our way around South America. So if you are listening, how can you help? How can you be a part of this? Well, first, please, 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 please pray, because this material is going to be broadcast to a potential audience of 9 million people in Lima, which is just an amazing thing to think that Maritza and I here in Catfish Corner in North Carolina could take this material to Lima and have it broadcast to an audience like that. So please, all of you that have prayer partners or prayer teams at your church or your ministry, please put us on your list. And please pray for Pastor Edward and his team as they develop the vision, because this is so big. Pastor Edward needs a team around him that shares this vision that can help it be developed in his country and then eventually all of Latin America. And, you know, translation costs money. The problem with having volunteers do translation work is that if it's a volunteer thing, you kind of work at it when you can, and it probably takes 10 times as long, and sometimes the quality is not as good. So please pray for a translator to come along and for the costs needed to translate. So cover this whole thing, Pastor Edward, his team, the broadcast, the translator, and costs with your prayers. You can support Shepherd's House with praying, with financial support for their dream of bringing self-propagating recovery and transformation throughout the world. The Dutch are doing something very similar. We were there this year and will be there next year because they are working with Shepherd's House to translate materials and translate workbooks and videos into Dutch. So Shepherd's House is kind of the leader in helping make this come to pass. So you can support them, or you could donate funds that might be useful for translation of the materials into Spanish. And best of all, you can help this dream come true by starting your own Joy Starts Here group where you live. You can go to joystartshere.com to get a book, read it, You can work it. Some people we know are starting it with their families. Some people are even starting it with their families over the phone. They're going to connect with families, their family around the country every other week, and they're going to go through the chapters of each chapter of the book one at a time. So there are all kinds of creative ways. You could do it with Skype. You could do it with VC, so you can use your webcams. You could do it over the phone. However you want to do it. Start your own Joy Starts Here group so you can actually enjoy the joy that God designed you for. So I want to encourage you, get involved with this, be part of this. Grow some joy, pray, support the vision, and support Shepherd's House. You will have a blast. So I am just really excited that I was able to share this. Maritza wanted to be here. She is having some oral surgery now, so she couldn't be on with me. But we are both just excited about what God is bringing to Peru and what Pastor Edward and his team and the people that came are wanting to do with all this.
Yes. Well, Ed, I just want to say this is exciting. I mean, just to think about what Pastor Edward is doing is so much of that vision that we had in our minds when we put the Joy Starts Here book together.
Yep.
He's just taking it to an entirely, new level.
Yep.
This is amazing. This is amazing.
It is amazing. He's already working with recovery people on Friday nights. So he's already growing, recovery people. So I am just excited.
Well, and Ed, after you started painting your picture here of what was going on for you during this trip, and really some of the weaknesses that you were struggling with, it really is a testament to how God can use our weaknesses and do something with that.
Yeah, excuse me. It's really exciting because I know, and one of the things I was going to teach about is how God loves to strengthen the weak. I mean, that's really what Paul's talking about in 2 Corinthians, that he kind of glories in his weakness because he knows that God will make him strong. So there was this sense, especially that first night with the kidney stone, that, okay, I am seriously weak. There's no earthly way I can do this. But I had a sense of anticipation that God was going to do something really good.
Wow. That's exciting. Now, I want to invite our viewers, our listeners. I want to invite you. I'm willing to guess you've got some thoughts or some questions you'd like to ask Ed about this special trip. So I just want to give you this opportunity. If there's something you'd like to share with Ed, something you'd like to ask Ed, this is really, really exciting, Ed, what you're sharing here, what's going on. And the potential, I mean, just what God can do with this is really, it's just exciting.
Yep.
So, so friends, if you want to let Danny know if you have a question, you can type in, you can raise your hand, we can get you on here so you can talk with us.
Yep.
We want to hear from you.
I've got Steve Griswell. I'm not sure if I can unmute him or not, but I'll read what he wrote. He says, hi, this is Steve and Janice Griswell writing here from Mexico. We have 25 years working in Latin America, lived in Argentina and Mexico, with ministry in other countries. We are planning on doing Thrive One training this March in Peoria.
Excellent.
We're doing the online study right now. Although we haven't actually gone through training yet, we're very excited about the concepts and the ministry. We feel it would be a great help to a lot of leadership training we do here with a broad spectrum of evangelical churches. Very interested in being in touch with you and with Pastor Edward about promoting life model training in Latin America.
What's exciting about that is I will meet you at Thrive in March because Maritza and I lead the track that you'll be in.
Yes.
So I'm going to see if I can unmute him too.
So I will make sure I have lunch or breakfast with you one day while we're there so that we can talk. That will be excellent.
So, Steve, I did unmute you. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How am I coming through?
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Great. Hi, Ed, and
Hi,
everyone
Steve.
there.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah, I just wanted to say my wife and I are still newbies regarding all this. We're still just getting ready to go through the training, but we've been looking at the life model stuff for a couple of years. Very, very, very excited about the potential, especially as we work with a lot of leaders here, a critical part of leadership development in Latin America. But I'm thrilled. We're both thrilled at what happened in Peru. It's a pleasure to meet Pastor Salazar. And I think we'd be very interested in the future, any way that we could support what's being done here in Latin America. We can talk more about that. But look forward to seeing you, Ed, in March there in Peoria.
Thank you. It will be a blessing to meet you. You can be part of, helping this vision grow in Mexico. That's exciting to me. It seems like something's afoot. Something's up. Something's up in Latin America. Our travel, we'll be there a couple times next year. We've been going for the last 2 years. So I think something's up.
Es muy bueno.
Well, thank you, Steve. It's really good to hear from you. It's going to be fun having you with us at Thrive.
Yeah, great to hear from you again, Chris.
Yes, thank you for being with us today. All right. Anyone else want to give a shout out here to Ed, ask Ed a question, and maybe something piqued your curiosity that Ed shared that you'd like him to highlight for you or unpack a little bit? And, Ed, I do have a slide up where folks can see kind of the Connexus flow where the joy starts here, and we've got the restarting and forming and belonging. I don't know if there's anything you'd want to say for any of our friends who are brand new to this. What is there anything you'd like to share about the recovery module there, or the spiritual formation module, or?
Well, part of what I think is so exciting about this training flow to me is we are creating a zone of transformation that can help change families, schools, churches, entire communities. This is a process where the weak and the strong learn to interact together with tender regard for weakness, where the presence of Jesus maintains shalom for everyone. And the whole process of transformation begins with Joy Starts Here. That's the new book. Jim Wilder, Chris Coursey, and Sheila Sutton and I wrote this book to help explain how joy can begin to transform families, schools, and churches and communities. And it's a study group for everyone. Everyone in a local church, a family, community can participate in it. There are interactive Bible studies, there are individual exercises, and there are group exercises that people can do each week together to find out how we can grow the transformation zone around ourselves. Now, when people complete this, they can move into a recovery module or a spiritual formation module. Because one of the things we want people to do is start growing joy right where they're at. We don't want people to have to pretend that there's someplace they're not and run around wearing the I'm fine mask. You know, I mean, all of us are tired of running around wearing the I'm fine mask.
Yes.
So there's a recovery module called Restarting for people that are working on addictions or trauma, or maybe those kind of problems are in your family. Or maybe you're just stuck, kind of feel like you're spinning your wheels, and you need a good shot of joy or a double shot of joy to help you get rolling. There's other people that complete Joy Starts here that are really not working with addictions or trauma. They don't feel stuck, and they just want to grow a deeper, more interactive relationship with Jesus, where they're being changed from the inside as they learn to interact with him at deeper levels. So they would go through forming. So we've got the weak and the strong both still staying in the Connexus training flow. Now the really cool thing is when both those modules, those 12-week modules are finished, both the weak and strong move into belonging, where they are interacting together with a tender regard for weakness and practicing Emmanuel Shalom together. This is where everyone is asking the question, how can I learn to create a joyful place for others to belong around me? And we practice learning those skills in groups that we intentionally mix that have people from both restarting and belonging in them. So people are learning to relate to others with joy that are like themselves, and others with joy that maybe come from a different background, different places where they've never been before. But it is, practically speaking, how do we learn and train people with the relation skills to really practice God's presence as they're interacting, to be tender towards their own weaknesses and each other's weakness, and the weak and the strong interacting together with joy.
That's exciting. That's exciting. That's breakthrough stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of comments here from people who have experience with Peru, so I'm really excited to read these for you. This is from Deidre Buckingham. She says, "My goosebumps have goosebumps. This is so exciting." We have a sponsor child in Peru through Compassion International. I would love to see an extension of joy to the little ones, especially resources for relief workers to refresh them and train them in joy recovery. So,
yes.
and then
Thank you, Deidre.
Marilyn says, "This is exciting to me too. Last year when we were in," and I'm going to mess up the pronunciation of this city, Pucallpa, Peru, on the east side of the Andes, we saw a Swiss missions doing a training session for the indigenous pastors to deal with trauma due to guerrilla violence. And I wanted so bad to tell them about Emmanuel Prayer and the Ministry of Thrive. But as a visitor, I felt I needed to know more. I shall pass on this information and name of Pastor Salazar to those we have gotten to know there, in hopes and with prayer that connections can happen for them as well. Praise the Lord."
Wonderful.
Oh.
Those of you that are wondering how you contact Pastor Salazar, he is on the webinar. I don't know, Pastor, if you want to type in or if you have a microphone to let people know how to get a hold of you. But he is at the Christian and Missionary Alliance Church in Lima, Peru.
I'm going to try to unmute him and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't want to give out his email address here without his permission.
Right.
But he is at the Christian and Missionary Alliance Church in Lima on Bienvenides Avenue.
Pastor Edward, are you there? I've tried to unmute you. It actually has switched to saying not attentive, so he may have actually stepped away.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait a second. He's got back. He's typing something in. Yes. All right. Yeah, he missed that. Pastor Edward, we're wondering if we can give out some kind of contact information. We have a few people that know people in Peru that they want to hook up with you.
Or if he could be unmuted if he's got
Yeah, I've clicked
microphone.
unmute, so, and he's not
Oh, okay.
trying to talk, so he must not have a microphone.
Okay.
This is wonderful. Now, was there anything else before I share something, Denny?
Just some thanks and rejoicing from Mike and Dina.
Nice.
All right, he's
Mike
given out
is,
his email, so I'm going to post
he
that
is.
in the chat section to everyone,
Good.
so everybody can just copy and paste, hopefully. See how that works.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah.
This is exciting that people can connect with you.
This is. Well, I'm excited to hear this, Ed, for so many reasons. especially since I was able to be a part of this this book writing. I don't know if folks realize, we've had some pretty nasty tornadoes come through our area on Sunday, and we've got hundreds of homes that are completely knocked down, and many families are just basically, their lives have been turned upside down. And so, Ed, as I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm gonna guess here that you'd say joy is going to be an important part of this recovery process for these people who are in a lot of pain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was a huge part of helping me manage pain when I was in Peru. Because joy releases endorphins, which are the body's natural painkillers. In addition to dopamine, which makes you feel more pleasure, that feeling of joy. But joy, joy is so foundational for being able to work with significant loss like what the people in your community have experienced, just to give them the capacity to process what's happened, to be able to connect with Jesus, to talk about the trauma. Joy is going to be critical.
Amen to that. And that's the message, friends. That's the message right there that's going out to Peru and to the people, is this message of joy, and how crucial joy is for recovery and growth. There's so much here. I do notice if you look, you should be able to see Pastor Edward's email. Denny's posted. If you look under, I think it'd be under the chat. That's correct there.
And I've been told that if you look at the attendee list and hover your mouse over his name, you can also see it there.
Oh, nice. Good, good. Well, friends, any other questions for Ed here? You can start joy today. Is a message here that you're hearing. You can start joy today. You don't have to wait. So any other questions for Ed before we move along here?
Hey, Chris, to amplify that, joy always tastes better when you grow it.
Amen. I like that. And I don't know if folks realize, but one of the fun things about working on the Joy Starts Here book is this was something we could do together as a team, and I have to say it was a very special time, and just being able to work on this project together. It's still just such a highlight for me and my family.
I think all of us kind of felt almost a letdown when it was done.
Yes.
And I'm convinced it was because we were thinking, okay, now we don't have a project to work on together.
That's right.
Because our joy was more about being together than the project.
Yeah, it was.
So it was like almost anticlimactic.
That's so true. I really missed it. I really do miss that. It was very, very joyful.
Well, Mike and Dina have a question for you. It says, Ed, how did you learn to be tender with yourself in this journey?
Good question.
Well, I've had a lot of experience with disability. Those of you that don't know, I was in a wheelchair had to use a wheelchair for 10 years, stopping in about 2003. When I blew out the disc and the nerve damage was happening again, it was really important for me that I keep my joy level up. So Maritza and I did a lot of joy stuff together. It was almost having to grow the capacity to having more capacity than I had pain. Because that allowed me to stay more connected with Maritza and more connected with God, especially God, because he and I had a lot of conversations about all this. And I kept seeing how he was responding to me in the middle of my weakness. I saw how Maritza was responding to me in my weakness, and that helped me with the pain that I'm in to be more tender with myself. It also was hugely joyful when all of us got together to do the first editing of the book out in Montana, because we were all experiencing weakness. Chris had been sick. One of his boys was sick back home. Sheila was sick. I was in pain, and we all got to practice being tender towards our weaknesses individually and together. And I don't even have the words to describe what it was like working together like that, because it wasn't just we practiced what we preached. It was just the energy of practicing what we preached was life-giving to all of us. So it was kind of a mix of all of those things, and that really helped me. It's also helped me working on the God sight skill, because God always responds tenderly to me when I'm weak. In fact, he seems to really, it's not that he gets off on, hey, Ed's weak again, let's see how he can screw up his day today. He doesn't think things like that. But there's almost a sense of anticipation I have sometimes when I'm weak to see, what is God going to do with this one? I like that. It's awesome.
That's neat. And you know, Ed, as I'm hearing what you went through in Peru, I mean, you really give such credibility to the message that you're bringing to the people. You know, you're suffering well, as we might say, and at some level, I'd say that has to give some credibility to the people who are learning from you and hearing you.
Well, thank you, Chris.
And,
it's there's just no way to try to talk about joy if you're looking miserable. I mean, it just doesn't compute.
Just doesn't go well.
No.
Well, I want to give a quick, just a quick plug to this resource Jen and I released not that long ago at our Joy Starts Here conference. As I'm thinking about practical ways, you know, leaders, you can build some joy with your spouse. Jen and I have come up with this little 30 Days of Joy book for busy married couples. And one of the goals of this resource is simply to just help you carve out 15 minutes in your day for some joyful interaction with your partner. And Jen and I just had a blast going through this book. In fact, we're going on our second round now. So you think about, okay, what can I do with my marriage? What can I do to really start a little bit of joy with my spouse? This would be a helpful resource. And complementary to the Joy Starts Here book that Ed's been talking about. And I really hope those of you who are leaders and those of you who are interested in bringing this to your community, the Connexus is that next step to really start practicing this training. And I have to say, it's a life preserver for your community. It's a life preserver for your family and your ministry. And it's fun, right, Ed? I mean, it's fun.
It is fun. You cannot be around Chris for long without knowing that this is real in his life. I mean, and his family, his boys, Jen. I mean, this is real. He is not blowing smoke. This is he lives this.
Well, thank you, and I hope our friends today, those of you who are with us, you know what? We've got a couple more Pastor Weekly programs left for 2013. December 5th, we're going to have Jim Martini, the Shepherd's House CEO. He's going to talk about tomorrow's joyful leader. And then on the 12th, 5 ways to increase your joy over the holidays. So I think that'll be a fun programs. I encourage you to check it out. Send the information to pastors you know. Yeah, we'll be having 2014 dates and topics on the horizon. Well, Ed, you know what? I got to say, it's so fun having you here. I just love being able to do this together, talking about joy and what God's doing in our lives.
Yep.
Thank you for your life and your ministry. I pray that Maritza's surgery is going well.
Yep.
And, yeah, we just so appreciate you guys. And, again, I want to give just that invitation for those of you who want to meet Ed and Maritza in March. I'm sorry I didn't actually post the dates here, but you can find the dates to Thrive on our thrivetoday.org website. Ed and Maritza lead Track 1, which is all about building joy and learning some of these 19 relational skills. So, Ed, may the Lord bless you today. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for what you're doing in your life.
Thank you.
You're an inspiration, and I sure do appreciate you.
Thanks, Chris. It's been fun being with you and everybody listening. And go grow some joy, man. It'll taste good.
Amen. And Denny, you are such a wonderful, wonderful help. It's so fun to work on these with you. Thank you for what you do. And friends, take Ed's advice. Go grow some joy. And may your day be full of joy and blessing, and return to joy when things don't always go the way that we plan. So bless you today.